They say blood is thicker than water. But what they don't tell you is that blood can also be currency. In the shadows of our world, where desperate souls meet ancient hunger, everything has a price. Even life itself. This is the story of a contract written in blood. A story of desperation and desire, of shame and salvation. This is the story of Ethan Rivers and Vivienne Ashcroft, a broken man and the immortal woman who bought his blood, and found herself losing something far more precious. Ethan Rivers had learned that rock bottom wasn't a place, it was a process. A slow descent into darkness where each day stripped away another piece of your dignity until you were left with nothing but the desperate arithmetic of survival. 28 years old. $73,000 in debt. 3 months behind on rent. And only one thing left to sell that anyone actually wanted. The address had come from a friend of a friend, scribbled on a piece of paper that felt heavier than it should. The underground market, they called it, though that name made it sound far more organized than it actually was. It was just a place where people with nothing left could sell the last thing they had. Their bodies. Their organs. Their blood. Ethan stood outside the abandoned warehouse in the industrial district, rain soaking through his worn jacket. The kind of rain that felt like judgment. His hands trembled, not from cold, but from the weight of what he was about to do. First time. The voice came from beside him. A thin man with hollow eyes and track marks on his arms smiled without warmth. That obvious? Ethan managed. You still have hope in your eyes. That'll change. The man gestured toward the rusted metal door. Welcome to Hell's Marketplace, friend. Where the monsters come shopping. Ethan wanted to turn back. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But then he thought of the collection notices, the threats, the look on his landlord's face last week. He thought of his mother in her care facility, the bills piling up, the medication she needed. He pushed open the door. The inside was nothing like he expected. No rusty warehouse floor or broken windows. The moment he stepped through, he entered a different world entirely. Red velvet curtains. Chandeliers dripping with crystals. The scent of expensive perfume mixing with something metallic that made his stomach turn. Blood. Name. A woman in an elegant black dress sat at a podium, her clipboard looking absurdly professional for such a dark enterprise. Ethan. Ethan Rivers. She looked him up and down with the clinical assessment of someone appraising livestock. Blood type. O negative. Her eyebrows raised. Universal donor. Excellent. You'll do well tonight. She handed him a card with a number. Lot 47. You'll be called in approximately 2 hours. There's a waiting area through those doors. Help yourself to the refreshments. You'll want to be well hydrated. The waiting room was worse than the entrance. At least 30 people sat in various states of despair and resignation. Some chatted quietly. Most stared at nothing. All of them wore the same expression Ethan saw in his mirror every morning, the look of someone who'd run out of choices. He sat in a corner, trying to make himself small, trying not to think about what would happen next. The refreshments table was laden with water, juice, protein bars. Everything designed to make their blood more appealing to the buyers. First time. A young woman with purple hair sat down beside him. She couldn't have been more than 22. Does everyone ask that? It's pretty obvious. You keep touching your neck like you're checking it's still there. She smiled sadly. I'm Maya. This is my 3rd time. What's it like? The buyers. Maya's expression darkened. Depends on who buys you. Some of them are almost clinical about it. Like you're just a juice box. But others. She shuddered. Others like to play with their food. There are rules, supposedly. They can't take too much. Can't hurt you. But rules are flexible when you're dealing with things that can compel you to forget. Compel. You really don't know anything about them, do you? Maya leaned closer. They can get in your head. Make you see things, feel things, forget things. It's how they've stayed hidden for so long. The powerful ones especially, they can make you believe anything. Ethan's throat went dry. Why do you keep coming back? Student loans. Medical bills. Same as everyone here. You don't come to a place like this because you want to. You come because the world has made sure you have nowhere else to go. She paused. What's your reason? My mom. She has early onset Alzheimer's. The care facility costs. His voice cracked. Everything costs so much. Maya squeezed his hand. We do what we have to for the people we love. Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed of that. Before Ethan could respond, a voice echoed through the room. Lot 47. Please proceed to the auction floor. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was it. The point of no return. The auction floor was theater of the macabre. A raised platform stood at the center of a circular room, surrounded by tiered seating shrouded in shadows. Ethan could feel eyes on him, dozens of them, but he couldn't make out faces in the darkness. Lot 47, the auctioneer announced, his voice smooth as silk. Male, age 28, blood type O negative. Universal donor. Medical screening shows excellent health, no diseases, no drug use. Opening bid starts at $5,000 for a 6-month contract. 6 months. They were buying rights to his blood for 6 months. 5,000. A voice called from the darkness. 7,000. 10,000. The bids came faster than Ethan could process. His blood. They were bidding on his blood like he was vintage wine. 20,000. The room went quiet. That voice was different from the others. Female, cultured, with an accent that spoke of old money and older power. 25,000. Another voice countered. 50,000. The woman's voice again, firm and final. Silence. 50,000 going once, twice. Sold to lot 47 to bidder 13. Ethan's legs nearly gave out. $50,000. It was more than he'd dared to hope for. Enough to pay off his debts, cover his mother's care for at least a year, maybe even. This way, please. A staff member guided him off the platform and through a side door into a private room. Your buyer will join you shortly to discuss terms. The room was small but luxurious. Leather furniture. A mahogany desk. A contract laid out with a gold pen beside it. Ethan tried to read it, but the legal language swam before his eyes. The door opened. She was nothing like what he expected. In his mind, vampires were pale creatures with blood-red eyes and sharp fangs. Gothic horror movie monsters. But the woman who entered looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Tall and elegant, with dark auburn hair falling in waves past her shoulders. She wore a burgundy dress that probably cost more than his entire wardrobe. Her skin was pale, yes, but with the luminous quality of fine porcelain. And her eyes, deep brown, almost amber in the light, held centuries of sadness. She was, simply put, the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. And the most terrifying. Mr. Rivers. Her voice was the same one that had bid 50,000 without hesitation. I'm Vivienne Ashcroft. Please, sit. Ethan sat. Not because he wanted to, but because his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. Vivienne settled into the chair across from him with the grace of someone who'd perfected the art of movement over countless years. She studied him with an intensity that made him feel transparent. You're afraid, she observed. Wouldn't you be? A ghost of a smile. I suppose I would. If I could remember what fear felt like. She gestured to the contract. The terms are standard. Twice weekly feedings over 6 months. Each session will last approximately 30 minutes. You'll be compensated $25,000 up front, the remaining $25,000 upon completion of the contract. And if I can't, if I want to stop, there's a termination clause. You can end the contract at any time, but you'll forfeit the remaining payment and must return half of the upfront sum. Her eyes held his. But I don't recommend breaking the contract. I'm known for being civilized. Not all buyers are. What happens during the feeding? I take what I need. You feel minimal discomfort. I have excellent control. She paused. I know what you're thinking. Why would someone pay $50,000 for blood they could simply take? Because, Mr. Rivers, I believe in consent. Even for creatures like me. Especially for creatures like me. There was something in her voice, a weariness, a disgust at what she was, that made Ethan's fear recede slightly. The money, he said quietly. Is it really $50,000? A bank transfer will be made to your account the moment you sign. I assume you need it urgently. My mother is in care facility, yes. I did my research before bidding. Vivienne's expression softened almost imperceptibly. I chose you because you're selling your blood for love, not for vices. That matters to me. Ethan picked up the gold pen. His hand shook as he signed his name on the contract. Beside him, Vivienne signed with flourish of someone who'd signed countless contracts over countless years. When do we start? He asked. Tonight. She stood. My driver is waiting outside. We'll go to my residence for the first feeding. Tonight? But The contract begins immediately, Mr. Rivers. Unless you'd like to reconsider. Her tone made it clear reconsideration would be very unwise. Ethan thought of his mother's face. The bills. The desperation that had brought him here. No. I'm ready. Somehow, Vivienne said, opening the door. I doubt that. Vivienne's residence wasn't a Gothic castle or a creepy mansion. It was a penthouse in the most expensive building in the city, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern minimalism mixed with antique furniture that was probably worth more than most houses. You collect art, Ethan observed, staring at a painting that looked suspiciously like an original Monet. I collect many things. Art, books, memories. Vivienne poured herself a glass of dark red wine. At least, Ethan hoped it was wine. Over the centuries, you accumulate things to fill the emptiness. How long have you been a vampire? 243 years. I was turned in 1782, in France, during a rather turbulent time. She settled onto a velvet sofa. You have questions. Everyone does during the first feeding. Ask them now. It'll make the process easier. Ethan sat across from her, maintaining distance. Does it hurt? Not if I'm careful. And I'm always careful. She set down her glass. My venom has properties that will make you feel pleasant, relaxed. Some humans describe it as euphoric. Is that how you keep people coming back? By making them addicted to the bite. Vivienne's eyes flashed with something like anger. I don't need to addict anyone, Mr. Rivers. I pay well for a consensual service. What I take tonight will sustain me for 3 to 4 days. Then we'll meet again. This is a business transaction, nothing more. Then why did you choose me specifically? There were others. She was quiet for a long moment. Because when you walked onto that platform, you looked ashamed. Not scared. Not resigned. Ashamed. That told me you were desperate but not broken. Those are the ones worth saving, even if only temporarily. You make it sound noble. But you're still buying a human being's blood. Yes, Vivienne said simply. I am. And I'm not pretending it's anything other than what it is. I'm a predator, Mr. Rivers. A monster, if you prefer. But I'm a monster who pays her debts and keeps her promises. She stood. Now, shall we begin? The sooner we start, the sooner you can go home with enough money to change your life. The feeding room was unexpected. Clean. Clinical, even. A comfortable reclining chair like you'd find in a dentist's office. Medical supplies on a nearby table. Everything sterile and professional. I take hygiene seriously, Vivienne explained, noting his surprise. Disease transmission works both ways. Lie back, please. Ethan reclined in the chair, his heart racing. Vivienne moved closer, and he could smell her perfume, jasmine and something else, something ancient and indefinable. I'll feed from your wrist tonight, she said, taking his left hand in hers. Her skin was cool but not cold. Gentle. The neck is more intimate. We'll work up to that if you're comfortable. Won't you just compel me to be comfortable? I could, but I won't. She met his eyes. I meant what I said about consent, Mr. Rivers. Now, relax. Fighting it only makes it worse. Her fangs extended, a subtle transformation, almost elegant, and then she bit. The sensation was indescribable. There was a sharp sting, then warmth spreading up his arm, through his chest, filling his entire body with liquid gold. Maya was right about the euphoria. It felt like floating. Like every worry, every fear, every burden was lifting away on gentle waves. He could hear himself making sounds, soft gasps, maybe, but he didn't care. This wasn't pain. This was easy. Vivienne's voice seemed to come from far away. Don't fight it. Just breathe. Time lost meaning. It could have been seconds or hours. All Ethan knew was the warmth, the strange pleasure-pain of the feeding, and the intimacy of it that was somehow more intense than anything he'd experienced. When she pulled away, he felt bereft, empty, like something essential had been taken. That's normal, Vivienne said, pressing gauze to his wrist. The feeling will pass. Here, drink this. She handed him a glass of orange juice and a protein bar. Your body needs to replenish. Ethan drank shakily. His head was clearing, but he felt weak, drained. The euphoria was fading, leaving reality in its wake. You took a lot, he managed. I took exactly what was agreed upon. No more, no less. She was wrapping his wrist with professional efficiency. You'll feel tired for the rest of today and tomorrow. Eat iron-rich foods. Stay hydrated. No strenuous exercise for 48 hours. You sound like a doctor. I've had centuries to learn proper care. She stepped back, putting distance between them again. Check your phone. The first payment should have arrived. Ethan fumbled for his phone. The bank notification made his breath catch. $25,000. Real. Actually there. I need to go, he said suddenly, standing too fast. The room spun. I need to, my mother. My driver will take you wherever you need to go. Vivienne's voice was back to cool professionalism. We'll meet again in 3 days. Same time. I'll have my assistant send you the details. Miss Ashcroft. Vivienne, she corrected quietly. If we're going to share blood for 6 months, you might as well use my name. Vivienne. He tested the name, liked the way it felt. Thank you. For the money. For being gentle. Something flickered across her face. Surprise. Sadness. You're welcome, Mr. Rivers. Now go. Take care of your mother. The driver, a silent man who asked no questions, dropped Ethan at the care facility. Despite his exhaustion, he went straight to the administrator's office. Mr. Rivers. The administrator looked surprised to see him. I wasn't expecting. I can pay, Ethan interrupted. For my mother's care. For the next year. I can pay it all right now. The look on the administrator's face, shifting from skepticism to shock, was worth every drop of blood he'd sold. Later, sitting beside his mother's bed, watching her sleep peacefully, Ethan touched the bandage on his wrist. The transaction had been clinical. Professional. So why did he feel like something more than blood had changed hands? The feedings developed a rhythm over the following weeks. Every 3 to 4 days, Ethan would receive a text with an address, sometimes Vivienne's penthouse, sometimes a hotel suite, once a private room at an exclusive restaurant after hours. She varied the locations but never the procedure. Professional. Clinical. Efficient. And yet, you're eating better, Vivienne observed during their 4th feeding. Your blood is richer. I can afford to eat now, Ethan replied. He was more comfortable now, understanding the process. The euphoria was still intense, but he'd learned to ground himself, to not lose himself completely in the sensation. Real food, not instant ramen. And your mother? Stable. Happy. They've adjusted her medication and she's having more good days. He paused. How did you know to ask about her? I read the personal essay you wrote for that emergency loan application that was rejected 3 months ago. Vivienne prepared his wrist with antiseptic. You wrote about her teaching you piano when you were 8. How she'd make up silly songs to help you remember the scales. You investigated me that thoroughly? I investigate all my donors thoroughly. I need to know I'm not enabling someone's self-destruction. Her eyes met his. You're one of the rare ones who's using this opportunity to build something, not destroy yourself. Did the others? Did they destroy themselves? Vivienne was quiet for a moment. Not all of them, but enough. She bit, and the conversation ended as the euphoria took hold. But something was changing. Ethan noticed it in small ways. The way Vivienne's hand would linger on his wrist after feeding, as if she was reluctant to let go. The way she'd sometimes start to say something, then stop. The way she'd positioned the reclining chair near the window so he could look out at the city lights during their sessions. The view helps, she'd explained. Gives you something to focus on. What she didn't say was that she'd specifically chosen this view, the city spreading out in all its messy human glory, because she'd noticed him staring at it during their second session with something like longing. By the 6th feeding, they'd started talking. Real talking, not just procedural questions and answers. What do you do when you're not this? Ethan asked, gesturing vaguely at the feeding room. I run several businesses. Investments, mostly. When you have centuries to compound interest, you accumulate substantial wealth. Vivienne was cleaning his wrist with a gentle efficiency he'd come to expect. I also restore old books. It's a hobby that became a second career. Books. I have a workshop in the building. I take damaged historical texts and bring them back to life. There was genuine warmth in her voice now. Would you like to see it? It was the first time she'd offered to show him anything beyond the feeding room and the entrance. Yes, Ethan said. I'd like that. The workshop was 3 floors below the penthouse, a climate-controlled room filled with leather-bound volumes in various states of repair. The smell of old paper and glue filled the air. Vivienne moved through the space like it was sacred ground. This is a first edition of Frankenstein, she said, showing him a book under glass. 1818. I purchased it at an estate sale. The binding was destroyed, pages water-damaged. It took me 2 years to restore it properly. Why? Ethan asked. You could just buy another copy. Because this specific book was loved by someone. Look here, she pointed to a notation in the margin. Some young woman in 1823 wrote about how the monster's loneliness moved her to tears. Her words are part of this book's history. Worth preserving. Ethan studied her profile as she spoke about the book. The passion in her voice, the careful way she handled the fragile pages. This wasn't the cool, professional vampire who bought his blood. This was someone who understood what it meant to be alone, who recognized loneliness in a 200-year-old margin note. You relate to him, he said softly. The monster. Vivienne's hand stilled on the page. I am a monster, Mr. Rivers. Ethan. We're in your sanctuary. You can call me Ethan. Ethan, then. She closed the book carefully. And yes, I understand what it means to be something that frightens people simply by existing. They stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by hundreds of years of human words and thoughts preserved in paper and ink. I used to write, Ethan admitted, before everything fell apart. I wanted to be a journalist, tell important stories. What stopped you? Life, debt, reality. He laughed bitterly. Turns out idealism doesn't pay the bills. Show me. Vivienne turned to face him fully. You're writing. I'd like to read it. Why? Because I've been drinking your blood for 6 weeks, Ethan. I think I'm entitled to know who you are beyond your debt and desperation. It was the most direct she'd been. The most she'd acknowledged that their arrangement was becoming something other than a transaction. Okay, Ethan heard himself say. Next session, I'll bring something. I look forward to it. Vivienne walked him to the door. 3 days, usual time. But as Ethan left, he caught a glimpse of her reflection in a window. She was watching him leave with an expression that was decidedly not professional. It was longing, raw and painful, and quickly masked when she noticed him looking. Something was definitely changing. The next session, Ethan brought a USB drive containing his old articles and essays. Vivienne accepted it with something that might have been eagerness carefully disguised as polite interest. "I'll read them tonight," she said, preparing for the feeding. "They're not very good. Let me be the judge of that." This feeding was different. More intense. Vivienne fed from his neck for the first time. "You're ready for it now," she'd said, and the intimacy of it was overwhelming. Her breath on his skin. The way she had to cradle his head with one hand, almost tender. The soft sound she made when his blood hit her tongue, like someone tasting the finest wine. When she pulled away, her eyes were darker than usual. Dilated. She stumbled back a step, as if distance was suddenly necessary. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked, still floating in the post-feeding haze. "Fine. I'm fine." But her voice was strained. "The driver will take you home." She left the room before he could ask anything else. 3 days later, Ethan arrived for their next session to find Vivienne already waiting, his USB drive in her hand. "You're talented," she said without preamble. "These articles, the one about the homeless veterans, the essay on healthcare disparities, they're not just good. They're important. That's kind of you to say, but I'm 243 years old, Ethan. I don't say things to be kind. I say them because they're true." She set the drive down. "Why did you stop writing?" "I told you. Money. Life." "No." Vivienne's gaze was penetrating. "You stopped because someone told you that caring about people's stories was naive. That truth and justice were childish concepts." "Who was it? A professor? An editor?" Ethan felt exposed. "My father. Before he left. He said I was wasting my time on bleeding heart nonsense, when I should be focusing on making money." "And you believed him?" "He wasn't wrong. Look where idealism got me. Selling blood to a vampire to pay my bills." "Look where it got you," Vivienne repeated quietly. "It got you here. With someone who sees your value beyond your debt." She paused. "I have contacts at several publications. I could make introductions." "Why would you do that?" "Because you're selling your blood temporarily, but you've already sold something more valuable permanently, your belief in yourself." She moved closer. "Take it back, Ethan. Don't let the world rob you of that." It was the most she'd revealed of herself. Her belief that the world robbed people of their essential selves, that the truly valuable things were the invisible ones. "Vivienne." "It's time for the feeding," she interrupted, suddenly formal again. But during the feeding, her hand shook. Ethan noticed. And when she pulled away this time, there was blood on her lower lip that she didn't immediately wipe away. She was staring at him with an expression that was part hunger, part something else entirely. "You need to leave," she said. "What?" "But we always." "Now, Ethan, please." Her voice was desperate, almost afraid. Ethan left, confused and concerned. Over the next few days, he received texts from Vivienne's assistant canceling their next 2 sessions. "Miss Ashcroft is dealing with urgent business matters." But when Ethan showed up at her building anyway, concerned, telling himself it was just about the contract but knowing it was something more, the doorman looked uncomfortable. "Miss Ashcroft has left instructions not to be disturbed." "Is she okay?" I'm not at liberty to say, sir." Ethan pulled out his phone and texted her directly for the first time. "Are you all right?" "I'm worried about you." The response came immediately. "I'm fine. I'll contact you when I'm ready to resume our arrangement." Arrangement. The cold formality of the word stung more than it should. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He thought about the way she'd looked at him during that last feeding. the desperation in her voice. The blood on her lip she'd been too distracted to wipe away. He went to the underground market, now familiar, almost mundane in its horror, and found Maya. "I need information about vampires," he said. "About what happens when they feel things they shouldn't feel." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Your buyer catch feelings?" "Maybe. I don't know. She's been avoiding me." "Oh, that's bad." Maya led him to a quiet corner. "Look, most vampires see us as food. Pure and simple. But occasionally, very occasionally, one of them starts to see a human as more than that. And it terrifies them." "Why?" "Because they remember what it's like to be human. To be vulnerable. To love something that can die." Maya's expression was serious. "Most vampires deal with this by running away or by compulsion, making the human forget or stop being interesting. The worst ones try to turn the human. Turn them into a vampire. But that's rare. Most of them just disappear. Cut the human off completely. It's safer for everyone." "That's messed up." "That's immortality," Maya said. "Imagine loving someone knowing you'll watch them age and die while you stay the same. Some vampires can't handle that reminder of what they've lost." Ethan thought about Vivienne's book restoration, her preservation of human words and thoughts, her loneliness masked as professional distance. "She's not running from me," he realized. "She's running from herself." "Then you need to decide," Maya said seriously. "Do you let her run, or do you chase her?" Because chasing an immortal predator who's trying to protect you from herself is a good way to get your heart broken. Or your memory erased. Or worse. Ethan touched the bandage on his neck where Vivienne had fed last. He could still feel the ghost of her breath on his skin. The tenderness in how she'd held him. "I have to try," he said. Maya sighed. "Then you're braver than most. Or more stupid. Possibly both." Weeks passed. The contract period was approaching its end. Vivienne's assistant sent cold, professional emails arranging feedings at impersonal hotel suites. The driver would pick Ethan up, deposit him in a room, and Vivienne would arrive exactly on time. But everything had changed. She wouldn't meet his eyes anymore. Wouldn't speak beyond necessary instructions. The feedings became exactly what they'd been at the beginning. Transactions. She'd feed quickly, efficiently, and leave. No more conversations. No more glimpses into her world. It was like watching someone die by inches. Or rather, watching someone who was already dead try to become even more lifeless. "Vivienne," Ethan tried during one feeding. "Talk to me. Please." "There's nothing to discuss, Mr. Rivers. We have a contract. I'm fulfilling my end of it." Back to Mr. Rivers. Back to formality and distance. "That's bullshit and you know it." She finally looked at him, and the anguish in her eyes nearly broke him. "What do you want from me, Ethan?" "The truth." "Why are you doing this?" "I'm not doing anything. I'm being what I am, a vampire who bought your blood for 6 months. Nothing more." "You're lying." "I'm incapable of lying. We don't have that luxury." She turned away. "Your blood is sustaining me. The money is helping your mother. This is working exactly as intended." "Then why do you look miserable?" "Because I am." The words burst from her like a confession. "Because I made a mistake. I thought I could maintain distance. I thought I could treat this as what it is, a business transaction. But you—" She pressed her hand to her mouth as if she could force the words back. "Me what?" "You're kind. Genuinely kind. You asked about my books. You noticed when I was tired. You brought me a coffee once because you remembered I mentioned liking the smell even though I can't drink it." Her voice cracked. "You treated me like a person, not a monster. And I can't do this anymore." "Do what?" "Pretend that feeding from you is just feeding. Pretend that I don't wait for our sessions like they're the only real moments in my existence. Pretend that I don't think about you constantly. Your laugh, your stories, the way you see the world with such stubborn hope despite everything. Ethan's heart was racing. Vivienne. No. She held up a hand. You're going to say something kind. Something understanding. And it'll make this worse. She moved to the door. We have 4 weeks left in our contract. I'll fulfill it. But then we're done. Completely. I'll have my assistant arrange for another donor going forward. This was a mistake. I won't repeat it. A mistake. Ethan stood, angry now. That's what you call this? Whatever's between us. There is nothing between us. Vivienne's eyes flashed. There can't be. Do you understand? You're 28. Human. Mortal. In 10 years, you'll have gray hair. In 20, you'll be middle-aged. In 60, if you're lucky, you'll die peacefully in your sleep. And I'll be exactly the same as I am now. Unchanging. Undying. Watching you wither. So that's it? You're giving up before we even. There is no we, Ethan. Her voice broke. There can't be. Because I've already made this mistake once, 200 years ago. I let myself care for a human. I watched him age while I didn't. I watched him resent me for staying young while he withered. I watched the love in his eyes turn to bitterness, then hatred. And when he finally died, old, angry, having wasted his human life loving something that could never truly be his partner, I swore I would never do that to someone again. The silence that followed was deafening. His name was Thomas, Vivienne continued, her voice hollow. He was a painter, brilliant and kind and so full of life. I thought I could make it work. I thought love would be enough. But I was selfish. I stole his one chance at a normal human life because I was lonely. Because I couldn't bear my immortality anymore. Vivienne. I won't do that to you, Ethan. I won't steal your life because I'm too weak to be alone. She opened the door. 4 more weeks. Then I'm setting you free. She left before he could respond. Ethan tried to respect her wishes. He showed up for the remaining feedings, accepted the money, maintained the professional distance she demanded. But he couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. About Thomas. About the pain that had carved itself into her over 2 centuries of existence. He started researching. The underground market had resources. People who'd studied vampires, who understood their psychology and history. He learned about vampire emotional bonds, about the rare cases where they fell in love with humans. The outcomes were almost universally tragic. But he also learned about the exceptions. The rare pairs who'd made it work. Who'd found ways to build lives together despite the impossibility of it all. You're playing with fire, Maya warned when he told her about his research. Vampires who develop feelings they can't control become dangerous. To themselves and to the object of their affection. She's not dangerous. She's a predator who's emotionally compromised. That's the definition of dangerous. Maya's expression softened. Look, I get it. You have feelings for her too. But have you thought about what you're really asking for? A relationship where you age and she doesn't? Where she has to watch you die? Where every day reminds her that you're temporary? I don't have all the answers, Ethan admitted. But I know that what she's doing now, shutting down, isolating herself, pretending she doesn't feel anything, that's destroying her. I can see it. Every feeding, she's a little more hollow. A little more like the actual monster she thinks she is. And you think you can save her? I think she needs to save herself. But maybe she needs someone to show her that it's worth trying. The final feeding arrived too quickly. Ethan showed up at the designated hotel suite with a mixture of determination and dread. This was it. His last chance to reach her before she disappeared from his life completely. Vivienne was already there, standing by the window, backlit by the city lights. She looked ethereal, untouchable, lonely. Ethan, she acknowledged without turning. You're punctual as always. We need to talk. We need to complete our contract. Then you need to leave. Is that really what you want? What I want is irrelevant. She finally turned to face him. I'm doing what's necessary. For who? For me. Because I don't remember asking you to make that decision for me. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Ethan moved closer. Tell me why you're so convinced that caring about me is a mistake. Tell me why you think I'm better off without you. Tell me why you're willing to be miserable for the next 200 years to protect me from something I might not even need protection from. Because I love you. The words exploded from her like they'd been forcibly extracted. Because I fell in love with your kindness and your hope and your ridiculous determination to see good in a world that's been nothing but cruel to you. Because when I feed from you, I don't just taste your blood. I feel your life, your warmth, your beautiful human fragility. And it terrifies me because I know I'll lose you. One way or another, I'll lose you. Ethan's breath caught. Vivienne. Don't. Tears, actual tears, were sliding down her face. Don't say anything kind. Don't tell me it'll be okay. Don't give me hope when there isn't any. What if there is? He closed the distance between them. What if we don't have all the answers, but we try anyway? What if we have 10 years or 30 years or 50 years together? And yes, it'll end badly because I'll die and you won't, but what if those years are worth it? You'll resent me eventually, like Thomas did. I'm not Thomas. And you're not the same person you were 200 years ago. Ethan reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. You've learned. You've grown. You restore books because you understand that even broken things have value worth preserving. Don't you think the same applies to relationships? To love. Love isn't worth the pain it causes. Says the woman who's been in pain for weeks trying not to love me. He squeezed her hand. You're already hurting, Vivienne. You're already miserable. The only difference is whether you're miserable alone or whether you let yourself have something real, even if it's temporary. I can't watch you die. You won't have to. Not for a long time. And when that time comes, we'll face it together. He cupped her face, thumb brushing away her tears. I don't have forever, but I have now. And I want to spend my now with you. However long that is. This is foolish, she whispered, but she was leaning into his touch. Probably. But I'd rather be a fool who loved you than someone smart enough to walk away. Ethan. He kissed her. Gentle at first, then deeper when she responded, her arms wrapping around him like she was drowning and he was air. She tasted like copper and wine and centuries of loneliness finally breaking apart. When they finally separated, both breathless, Vivienne rested her forehead against his. I'm going to hurt you, she said. Not intentionally, but the nature of what I am. Will you hurt me more than you're hurting me right now by pushing me away? No, she admitted. Probably not. Then stop trying to protect me from something that hasn't happened yet. Stop running from the only real connection you've had in 200 years. He kissed her forehead. I'm not asking for forever, Vivienne. I'm asking for a chance. She pulled back to look at him, searching his face for doubt or fear, finding only sincerity and that stubborn hope she'd fallen in love with. This is a terrible idea, she said. Probably the worst. You'll have to watch me not age while you do. I'll consider that a bonus. Dating someone who never gets old? That's basically winning the relationship lottery. Despite everything, she laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rusty, like she'd forgotten how. You're ridiculous. And you're beautiful when you smile, which you should do more often. Vivienne shook her head, but she was still smiling. The contract ends tonight. I'm not paying you anymore. Good. Because I don't want to be paid. Ethan pulled her close again. I want to take you to dinner. Actual dinner, at a restaurant, like normal people on a normal date. Even if you can't eat the food. That sounds, she paused, actually lovely. Then it's settled. This is no longer a transaction. He kissed her nose. This is something else entirely. Something terrifying. Something worth trying. They started slowly, carefully, learning how to be with each other outside the framework of their contract. Vivienne took Ethan to art galleries and exclusive book auctions. She introduced him to her world of quiet luxury and centuries-old connections. She showed him paintings she'd watched being created, told him stories about meeting famous historical figures, shared her long, strange life with someone for the first time in decades. Ethan brought her to late-night diners and underground music venues. He reintroduced her to the messy, vibrant chaos of human existence she'd isolated herself from. He made her laugh with terrible jokes. He held her hand in public, defiant of anyone who might question why someone who looked like her was with someone who looked like him. "They probably think you're my sugar mama," he joked one evening. "Technically, I was paying you for your blood. So they're not wrong. Former sugar mama. We're equal partners now." "Equal?" She raised an eyebrow. "I have more money than you'll earn in 10 lifetimes. And I have a working knowledge of memes and pop culture from this century. We both bring things to the table." The feeding continued, but it was different now. Intimate in ways that went beyond the physical. Vivienne would feed from his neck while they lay together, and afterwards they'd talk for hours. About everything and nothing. About his writing, which he'd started again, encouraged by her unwavering belief in him. About her books and her loneliness and her fear of losing him. "I think about it constantly," she admitted one night, lying beside him in her bed. "The math of your mortality. If you live to 80, we have 52 years. That sounds like a lot until I remember I've already lived 243 years. 52 years is nothing. A blink. Then we'll make them count," Ethan said, lacing his fingers through hers. "Every single day. How are you so accepting of this? Of me? Because you're not what you think you are." He turned to face her. "You think you're a monster. But monsters don't spend 2 years carefully restoring a book so that some long-dead woman's margin notes are preserved. Monsters don't pay $50,000 for blood they could simply take. Monsters don't fall in love and then try to push that love away to protect it. Maybe I'm just a monster with good PR. Maybe you're just a person who's lived too long and forgotten what it means to be one." Vivienne was quiet for a long moment. Thomas used to say something similar. In the beginning, before everything went wrong. He'd tell me I was more human than I realized. "What happened? Really?" Ethan asked gently. "You said he grew to resent you, but was that all of it?" She took a shaky breath. "He wanted me to turn him. Toward the end. He was 50, looking old, and he couldn't bear it anymore. He begged me to make him like me so we could be together forever. And I refused. Why? Because I wouldn't wish this existence on anyone I loved. This emptiness. This watching the world change while you stay the same. This knowing you'll outlive everyone and everything you care about." Her voice broke. "He called me selfish. Said I wanted him to die so I could play the tragic immortal widow. And maybe he was right. Maybe I was selfish. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't take his humanity from him. So he died hating you. He died thinking I'd never really loved him. Because if I had, I would have saved him." Tears slid down her face. "But I did love him. I loved him enough to let him die human. Even if he never forgave me for it." Ethan pulled her close, letting her cry against his chest. 200 years of grief pouring out. 200 years of guilt and loneliness and self-loathing. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry that happened to you." "Don't apologize. It was my fault. I shouldn't have let myself love him in the first place." "No. You should have. And you should let yourself love me now. Because the alternative, living for centuries without ever connecting to anyone, that's not living. That's just existing. I don't want to hurt you the way I hurt him." "Then don't. When the time comes, if the time comes, that I'm old and scared and begging you to turn me, we'll talk about it honestly. Together. No assumptions about what the other person wants. No decisions made out of fear. He tilted her face up to meet his eyes. But right now I'm 28 and healthy and completely in love with you. Can we just be here? In this moment. Vivienne searched his face, then nodded. Okay. Yes. We can be here. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, her cool skin against his warmth, her immortality pressed against his mortality, finding peace in the impossibility of it all. Of course, the world didn't care about their fragile happiness. Reality had a way of intruding. Ethan's mother's condition worsened. Alzheimer's was cruel in its progression, stealing her piece by piece. Some days she knew him. Other days she called him by his father's name, or didn't recognize him at all. I'm sorry, Vivienne said, sitting with him in the care facility's hallway after a particularly difficult visit. I know how much this hurts. She asked me today who I was. Just looked at me like I was a stranger. Ethan's voice was hollow. And the worst part is knowing that eventually, that'll be permanent. She'll forget me completely. You're doing everything you can for her. Am I? He laughed bitterly. I'm spending my time with a vampire, writing articles that might never get published, hoping that somehow everything will work out. Meanwhile, my mother is disappearing. Ethan. I'm sorry. I'm not angry at you. I'm just... He put his head in his hands. I'm scared. Of losing her. Of losing everything. Of losing you. Vivienne pulled him close. You're not going to lose me. Not for a very long time. I promise. You can't promise that. People leave. People die. People forget. I don't forget, she said firmly. It's a curse of immortality. I remember everything. Every face, every name, every moment. And I promise you, Ethan Rivers, that I will remember you until the end of existence itself. That's romantic in a terrifying way. I'm a vampire. Romance and terror are part of the package. Despite everything, he smiled. She always knew how to pull him back from the edge. But the strain was showing. The reality of their relationship, the fundamental impossibility of it, was becoming harder to ignore. Ethan was aging. Not dramatically, not obviously, but Vivienne noticed. A few gray hairs at his temples. Fine lines around his eyes when he laughed. The subtle changes that marked the passage of time on a human body. She saw them and felt panic. Each change was a countdown. Each gray hair was a reminder that he was temporary. You're staring at me again, Ethan said one evening, catching her watching him as he worked on an article. I'm appreciating you. You're counting down. Don't think I don't notice. He set his laptop aside. Vivienne, we talked about this. We're living in the now, remember? The now is becoming the later at an alarming rate. I'm 29, not 90. We have time. Do we? She stood abruptly, pacing. Look at you. Really look. You have gray hair now. Your face is changing. In 10 years, you'll look middle-aged while I look exactly the same. In 20 years. In 20 years, I'll hopefully still be alive and annoying you with bad jokes. Ethan approached her carefully. What's really going on? This isn't just about my aging. Vivienne was silent for a long moment. I saw Maya today. At the underground market. I still go sometimes she paused, to make sure things are running ethically. As ethically as something like that can run. Okay. She told me you've been researching vampire turning. The process. The risks. The success rates. Vivienne's eyes met his, filled with fear and anger. Tell me you're not considering that. Tell me you're not thinking about asking me to. I'm not, Ethan interrupted. I was researching it because I wanted to understand. To know what Thomas was asking of you. To understand why you refused. And what did your research tell you? That turning someone is incredibly dangerous. That most people don't survive it. That even those who do often lose significant parts of their humanity, their ability to feel, to care, to be anything other than predators. He took her hands. And I understood why you couldn't do that to someone you loved. Why you wouldn't want to risk turning them into something hollow. Then why were you researching it? Because I needed to know that if, when the time comes that I'm old and scared and facing death, I'll understand why you can't save me. Why you have to let me go. His voice was steady. I don't want to become Thomas, Vivienne. I don't want to die resenting you for letting me die human. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. You're preparing for your own death. I'm preparing for our ending, whenever it comes, so that we can enjoy the middle without constantly dreading what's coming. That's very mature of you. I have a good therapist. She's helped me work through my control issues. He pulled Vivienne close. The point is, I'm not asking you to turn me. I'm not going to ask you to turn me. That's not what this is about. What is it about then? It's about making the most of whatever time we have. 50 years or 5 years or 5 months. It's about building a life together, even if that life has an expiration date. Vivienne rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, that steady, mortal rhythm that would eventually stop. I don't know how to do this. How to love someone knowing I'll lose them. Neither do I, Ethan admitted. But we're figuring it out together. And that's enough. 6 months into their relationship, Vivienne started to unravel. It began with small things. Feeding sessions she'd cut short, claiming she wasn't hungry. Cancelled dates with vague excuses. Long stretches where she wouldn't answer her phone. She's spiraling, Maya told Ethan when he tracked her down at the underground market, desperate for insight. I've seen it before with vampires who get too attached to humans. They start to self-destruct. What does that mean? It means she's probably not feeding enough. Isolating herself. Maybe even, Maya hesitated. Look, vampires can't really die easily. But they can starve themselves into a kind of suspended state. A sleep that lasts decades or centuries. It's a form of suicide for immortals. She wouldn't. Wouldn't she? She's watching you age. She's reliving all her trauma with Thomas. She's terrified of hurting you but equally terrified of losing you. That's a recipe for disaster. Ethan felt ice in his veins. I need to find her. Her building. She won't answer. The doorman says she's given instructions not to be disturbed. Then you need to break in. Force her to face this. Maya grabbed his arm. But be careful. A vampire who's starving and emotionally unstable is dangerous. Even one who loves you. Ethan managed to get into Vivienne's building by waiting for another resident and slipping in behind them. The elevator ride to her penthouse felt like an eternity. When he reached her door, he pounded on it. Vivienne, I know you're in there. Open the door. Silence. I'm not leaving. I'll stand here all night if I have to. I'll make a scene. The door opened. Vivienne stood there, and Ethan's breath caught. She looked terrible. Her skin was paler than usual, almost translucent. Her eyes were sunken, ringed with dark shadows. She looked like she hadn't fed in weeks. Ethan, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You shouldn't be here. Like hell I shouldn't. He pushed past her into the penthouse. What are you doing to yourself? I'm handling things. By starving yourself? By hiding from me? That's not handling things, Vivienne. That's giving up. Maybe I should give up. The words burst from her. Maybe this was always going to end badly and I'm just prolonging the inevitable. What happened? What changed? I fed from someone else last week. She wouldn't meet his eyes. I had to. I was too weak. So I hired someone from the market. And do you know what I realized while I was feeding from them? What? That their blood meant nothing. It sustained me, yes, but it was empty. Hollow. Like drinking water when what you really need is wine. Her voice broke. Because I've imprinted on you, Ethan. Your blood, your life force. I'm addicted to it in a way that goes beyond normal vampire feeding. When I feed from you, I don't just taste your blood. I taste your emotions, your experiences, your soul. And it's the most exquisite thing I've ever experienced. But it's also destroying me. How? Because every time I feed from you, I feel how human you are. How temporary. How fragile. And I can't. She pressed her hands to her face. I can't keep doing this. Feeding from you is like watching a timer count down. Each session reminds me that you're dying. Slowly, but inevitably. Ethan moved closer. Everyone's dying, Vivienne. That's what being human means. But I have to watch it. Feel it. Every time I drink from you, I'm literally consuming your life force. Your mortality becomes part of me. And it's too much. The love and the fear and the inevitability of losing you, it's consuming me. So what? You're just going to starve yourself? Hide from me until I give up and leave. It would be better for you if you did. Stop deciding what's better for me. Ethan's voice rose. Stop trying to protect me from choices that are mine to make. Stop running away from the only real thing either of us has had in our miserable existences. You don't understand. Then make me understand. Tell me what's really going on in your head. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're so terrified of losing me eventually that you're willing to lose me right now. And that's just cowardice. The word hit Vivienne like a slap. Her eyes flashed with anger. Cowardice? I've lived 243 years. I've survived wars and plagues and the death of everyone I've ever loved. Don't you dare call me a coward. Then stop acting like one. Ethan stepped closer, getting in her space. You're hiding. You're running. You're so afraid of being hurt again that you're hurting yourself instead. If that's not cowardice, what is it? It's self-preservation. It's self-destruction. He grabbed her shoulders. Look at you. You're wasting away because you'd rather slowly die than risk living. That's not preservation, Vivienne. That's giving up. I don't know how to do this, she whispered, the anger draining away, leaving only fear. I don't know how to love you without drowning in the knowledge that I'll lose you. You live in the moment. You take each day as it comes. You stop projecting 50 years into the future and start focusing on right now. He pulled her close. Right now, I'm here. I'm alive. I love you. Can that be enough? For how long? For as long as we have. Vivienne sagged against him, centuries of exhaustion and fear and loneliness finally breaking through her careful control. She cried deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from the core of her being. Ethan held her through it, his own tears falling silently. They stood like that for a long time, two broken people clinging to each other in the face of an impossible situation. Finally, Vivienne pulled back. I need to feed. Properly. I'm so weak, Ethan. I can barely stand. Then feed from me. I can't. That's the problem. Feeding from you is part of who we are. Part of our relationship. You can't cut yourself off from it because it scares you. He offered his wrist. Feed. Vivienne. Let yourself have this. It'll hurt more later. When you're gone. Maybe. But starving now doesn't change that. All it does is rob us of the time we do have. She stared at his wrist for a long moment, then slowly, carefully, bit down. The sensation was familiar yet different. More intense. Raw. He could feel her desperation, her need, but also her love. Her fear. Her absolute terror at the depth of what she felt for him. When she finished, she looked better. Color in her cheeks. Strength in her limbs. But also vulnerable in a way he'd never seen. I'm going to lose you, she said quietly. One day, I'm going to lose you, and it's going to destroy me. Maybe, Ethan agreed. But you're also going to have me. 4 years. For however long fate allows. Isn't that worth the pain? I don't know. Yes, you do. Otherwise, you would have pushed me away permanently months ago. Otherwise, you wouldn't have just fed from me. He cupped her face. You're already in too deep, Vivienne. We both are. So we might as well see this through. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple. It's terrifying and complicated and probably doomed. But it's also real. And real is rare for people like us. Vivienne kissed him then, desperate and grateful and still so very afraid. But also present. Finally, fully present in the moment instead of drowning in the future. Stay, she whispered against his lips. Please stay tonight. I'll stay as many nights as you'll have me. That might be a lot of nights. Good, Ethan said, and meant it with every fiber of his mortal being. Recovery wasn't linear. Vivienne still had bad days where the weight of Ethan's mortality pressed down on her like physical pain. Days where she'd look at him and see not the man he was but the old man he'd become, the corpse he'd eventually be. But Ethan was patient. He'd learned that loving an immortal meant understanding that their sense of time was fundamentally different. What felt like slow progress to him felt terrifyingly fast to her. Talk to me, he'd say on those bad days. Tell me what you're feeling. And slowly, painfully, she learned to articulate the dark thoughts instead of letting them consume her. The fear. The grief. The guilt at feeling grief for someone who wasn't even dead yet. It's anticipatory grief, Ethan's therapist explained when he convinced Vivienne to join one of his sessions. You're mourning a loss that hasn't happened yet. It's common in relationships where one partner has a terminal illness or, she paused delicately, or a significantly shorter lifespan. Is there a cure? Vivienne asked. Not a cure. But there are coping mechanisms. Ways to stay present instead of catastrophizing about the future. The therapist looked between them. Have you two discussed end-of-life planning? The question hung in the air like a blade. No, Ethan admitted. We've avoided it. Then that's where we start. Because right now, Vivienne, you're terrified of a vague, undefined future loss. But if you two actually discuss what Ethan's death will look like, his wishes, his timeline, how you'll say goodbye, it becomes less of a monster and more of an event that can be planned for and processed. So they did. Over the following weeks, they had the uncomfortable conversations. Ethan made it clear he didn't want to be turned. He wanted to die human, with his humanity intact. He wrote a will, named Vivienne as his healthcare proxy, discussed his wishes for his final days. I want you there, he said. When the time comes. I don't want to die alone or with strangers. I want your face to be the last thing I see. That's cruel, Vivienne whispered. No. It's honest. He took her hand. I love you. Why would I want anyone else there at the end? Because watching me watch you die will be torture for both of us. Maybe. But the alternative, you avoiding me at the end, running away to protect yourself, that would be worse. I need to know you'll be there. That you won't abandon me when things get hard. I won't abandon you, she promised. No matter how much it hurts. I'll be there. Having those plans in place, horrible as they were, actually helped. The future was no longer an amorphous cloud of dread. It was something they'd discussed and prepared for, which made it somehow less terrifying. And in the meantime, they built a life. Ethan's writing career took off. One of the contacts Vivienne had introduced him to offered him a position at a prestigious magazine. His articles on social justice issues started gaining attention. He found purpose again, meaning beyond just survival. Vivienne's book restoration business expanded. She hired assistants, took on bigger projects, even started teaching courses on historical preservation. For the first time in decades, she was engaging with the world instead of hiding from it. They traveled together. Vivienne showed Ethan places she'd lived over the centuries: Paris, Vienna, Tokyo. She introduced him to other vampires, carefully selected ones who understood how to interact with humans without being predatory. You're different, one of them observed, watching Vivienne watch Ethan explore a night market in Bangkok. Lighter. I haven't seen you like this in 200 years. About that, Vivienne admitted. Is it worth it? Knowing how it'll end. Ask me in 50 years. I'm asking now. Vivienne looked at Ethan, who was laughing with a street vendor, his face lit up with joy at some ridiculous souvenir he'd found. Yes, she said softly. It's worth it. They settled into routines. Sunday mornings, Ethan would read his articles aloud to Vivienne while she worked on book restorations. She'd offer feedback, sharp and insightful, pushing him to dig deeper into his subjects. Tuesday and Friday evenings were feeding times, intimate and tender, no longer clinical transactions but acts of love and trust. I used to hate this, Vivienne admitted one evening, after feeding from his neck. The necessity of it. The reminder that I'm a predator. But with you, it's different. It's sacred. She kissed the puncture marks gently. You trust me with your life every time. That's not nothing. You've never given me a reason not to trust you. Yet. I've never given you a reason not to trust me yet. Stop, Ethan said firmly. Stop waiting for yourself to become the monster you think you are. You're not going to suddenly lose control and kill me. You're not Thomas's Vivienne anymore. You've grown. Changed. Have I? Yes. And you know how I know. He pulled her close. Because the old Vivienne, the one who was with Thomas, she would have let me walk away. She would have let me think this was my decision, that I was protecting myself by leaving. But you fought for us. You let me fight for you. That's growth. Vivienne was quiet for a moment. I'm still terrified. Good. That means you care. He kissed her forehead. Fear means it matters. And I'd rather have you terrified and present than calm and distant. You're very wise for a 29-year-old. 30 next month, actually. He said it casually, but he felt her tense against him. Another year. Another marker of his mortality. We should celebrate, she said, her voice carefully neutral. Vivienne. No, really. 30 is significant. We should do something special. Okay, Ethan agreed, because he recognized this as her trying to embrace his aging instead of fearing it. Trying to celebrate life instead of mourning its inevitable end. It was progress. Slow, painful progress. But progress nonetheless. 2 years into their relationship, Ethan got sick. Nothing serious. Pneumonia, the doctor said. Treatable with antibiotics and rest. But to Vivienne, it was a preview of mortality that sent her spiraling. You could have died, she said, pacing his bedroom while he rested. If it had been left untreated, if you developed complications. But I didn't. I'm fine. Humans get sick sometimes, Vivienne. It's normal. Nothing about this is normal. Her voice rose. You could have died from something that wouldn't even affect me. Do you understand how fragile you are? How easily I could lose you? Yes, Ethan said calmly. I do understand. I've always understood. That's part of being human, Vivienne. We break. We get sick. We die. You knew this when we started. Knowing it intellectually and experiencing it are very different things. She sat on the edge of his bed, her hands shaking. When I got the call from the hospital, when they said you were being admitted, I couldn't breathe. I know I don't need to breathe, but I couldn't. It was like Thomas all over again. The fear. The helplessness. The knowledge that I can't protect you from your own biology. Ethan took her hand. You're not supposed to protect me from everything. That's not what love is. Then what is it? It's being here. Even when I'm sick and weak and very human. It's holding my hand through the scary parts instead of running away from them. He squeezed her fingers. You've been here every day since I was admitted. Reading to me, bringing me books, bribing the nurses to let you stay past visiting hours. That's love, Vivienne. Not protection. Presence. I wanted to heal you. I researched vampire blood, whether it could cure human illness. Did you know some vampires have healing properties in their blood? And I don't. My blood would probably just make you sick in a different way. She laughed bitterly. I'm 243 years old, and I can't even heal a simple infection. I don't need you to heal me. I have antibiotics for that. What I need is for you to not spiral every time I get sick. Because I will get sick again, Vivienne. This is the first of many times my body will fail in small ways. I know. And it terrifies me. Then let it terrify you. Feel the fear. Sit with it. But don't let it destroy what we have. He pulled her down to lie beside him. I'm okay. Right now, in this moment, I'm okay. Can you be okay with that? Vivienne was silent for a long time, listening to his slightly congested breathing, feeling the warmth of his fever through his skin. All the markers of his humanity. His fragility. I can try, she finally said. That's all I ask. But the incident left its mark. Vivienne became hypervigilant about Ethan's health, insisting he dress warmly, monitoring his diet, suggesting vitamins and supplements and preventive care measures. You're being overprotective, Ethan said one evening when she'd called to make sure he'd eaten dinner and taken his vitamins. I'm being careful. You're being controlling. And I know it comes from love, but Vivienne, you can't micromanage my mortality. I'm trying to keep you healthy. You're trying to keep me alive forever, which is impossible. Humans die, and no amount of vitamins is going to change that. He softened his tone. I appreciate that you care. But you need to trust me to take care of myself. I've been doing it for 30 years. Not very well, considering you nearly died from pneumonia. I had a bad cold that turned into pneumonia. It happens. And I got treatment and I'm fine now. He moved closer to the phone screen. They were video chatting while he was away for work. You can't control this, and trying to will only make you miserable. I'm already miserable. At least if I'm controlling things, I feel like I'm doing something. You are doing something. You're loving me. That's enough. It doesn't feel like enough. Ethan sighed. Have you talked to your therapist about this? Yes. She suggested I'm experiencing hypervigilance as a response to trauma. That watching Thomas deteriorate has left me with a compulsive need to prevent the same thing from happening to you. And what did she suggest you do about it? Cognitive behavioral therapy. Mindfulness exercises. Accepting that I can't control everything. Vivienne's voice was laced with frustration. It all sounds very sensible and completely impossible. It's not impossible. It's just hard. Like everything else about us. He smiled at her through the screen. But you're trying, which is what matters. And when you get too controlling, I'll call you on it. We'll figure it out together. I don't deserve you. That's not for you to decide. I chose you, remember? You don't get to tell me I made a bad choice. Despite herself, Vivienne smiled. You're insufferably optimistic. And you're beautifully damaged. We're perfect for each other. The video call ended with plans for dinner when Ethan returned. But as Vivienne sat alone in her penthouse, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was fighting a losing battle. Not against Ethan's mortality, that was inevitable, but against her own nature. She was a vampire. A creature designed to take life, not nurture it. Every instinct she had was predatory, possessive, controlling, and trying to be something different, something softer, more trusting, more human. Felt like wearing skin that didn't fit. But when Ethan returned home and fell into her arms, laughing about something ridiculous that had happened on his flight, all her doubts faded. This was worth it. He was worth it. Even if it destroyed her in the end. 3 years into their relationship, on Ethan's 31st birthday, he asked her to marry him. They were in her book restoration workshop. Vivienne was carefully repairing a 17th-century prayer book while Ethan worked on an article. It was a comfortable silence, the kind that came from knowing someone deeply enough that words weren't always necessary. Marry me, Ethan said suddenly. Vivienne's hand stilled on the page. What? Marry me. Let's get married. He set his laptop aside and moved to kneel beside her chair. I know it's complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons why it's a bad idea. But I want to marry you, Vivienne. I want to stand in front of witnesses and declare that we're choosing each other, for however long we have. Ethan. I'm not asking you to turn me. I'm not asking you to make me immortal. I'm just asking you to be my wife. For the next 40 or 50 years, however long I've got. What do you say? Vivienne stared at him, her mind racing. Marriage meant witnesses, records, people knowing about them, about what she was. It meant explaining to his family, his friends, why his wife never aged. It meant exposure, risk. But it also meant claiming each other in the eyes of the world. It meant something permanent in a relationship defined by impermanence. Say something, Ethan prompted. Even if it's no. It's not no, Vivienne said slowly. It's, are you sure? Really sure? Because marriage to me means complications you can't even imagine. Like what? Like explaining to everyone why your wife looks the same in 20 years while you've aged. Like the attention we'll draw. Like the questions we'll have to answer. She cupped his face. I've avoided this kind of commitment for 200 years because it's safer to stay hidden. Marriage is the opposite of hidden. So we'll be creative. We'll move every decade or so. You can be my wife who ages very well. Or we can be private. Keep our marriage between us and a few trusted people. He covered her hand with his. I don't need a big wedding, Vivienne. I just need you to say yes. Why is this important to you? Because I want to make it official. I want you to be my next of kin. I want legal recognition that we're family. And yes, I want the symbolic weight of vows and rings and promises. He paused. And because I want you to have something concrete to hold on to after I'm gone. Not just memories, but legal documents and photos and proof that this was real. That we were real. Vivienne's eyes filled with tears. You're thinking about after. I'm always thinking about after. Because I need to know you'll be okay. And I think having had a marriage, a real, legal, witnessed marriage, will help. It'll give you closure instead of just loss. You're proposing to me as an end-of-life planning strategy? I'm proposing because I love you and I want to marry you. The end-of-life planning is a bonus. He grinned. So, will you marry me? Make me the happiest mortal man alive. Vivienne looked at him, this beautiful, frustrating, impossibly optimistic human who'd crashed into her life and refused to let her stay in the shadows. Who'd seen her at her worst and loved her anyway. Who was planning for his own death with the same care most people planned weddings. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Ethan let out a whoop of joy and kissed her, nearly knocking over the 17th century prayer book in his enthusiasm. Vivienne caught it just in time, laughing through her tears. Careful, she chided. This book has survived 400 years. I'd like it to survive your proposal. Sorry. I'm just really happy. He pulled a ring from his pocket, a simple band with a small, dark ruby. I know it's not traditional. But rubies made me think of blood, and blood made me think of us, and... It's perfect, Vivienne interrupted, slipping it on her finger. It fit perfectly. When did you buy this? 6 months ago. I've been carrying it around, waiting for the right moment. And the right moment was in my workshop while I was working on a prayer book? The right moment was when I looked at you and couldn't wait another second. He kissed her again. We're getting married. I'm marrying a vampire. This is insane. Completely insane, Vivienne agreed. What should we tell people? The truth. That we love each other. The rest is details. The rest is a little more complicated than details. Then we'll figure it out. Together. Like we figure everything out. They planned a small ceremony. Just a handful of people, Maya, who'd become a friend to both of them. A few of Ethan's colleagues. 2 vampires from Vivienne's past who understood the significance of what she was doing. And Ethan's mother, on one of her rare good days when she remembered who he was. The ceremony took place at sunset in Vivienne's penthouse, with the city lights beginning to twinkle below them. Ethan wore a simple suit. Vivienne wore a vintage dress from the 1920s that had belonged to someone she'd loved long ago. "I, Ethan, take you, Vivienne, to be my wife," he said, his voice steady. "I promise to love you in this life, for as long as this life lasts. I promise to be present, to be honest, to face the hard truths with you. I promise to age while you don't, to change while you stay the same, and to not resent you for it. I promise to die human, and to trust that you'll be okay after I'm gone." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. "I, Vivienne, take you, Ethan, to be my husband," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I promise to love you in this life, for as long as you live. I promise to be present, to stop running from what scares me. I promise to watch you age with gratitude for every year, every day, every moment. I promise to be there at the end, no matter how much it hurts. And I promise to remember you, every word, every laugh, every touch, until the end of time itself." When they kissed as husband and wife, Vivienne tasted salt, his tears mixing with hers. This beautiful, impossible, temporary forever they'd chosen. The small reception afterwards was bittersweet. Ethan's mother looked at them with confusion, asking Vivienne repeatedly if they'd met before. But she seemed happy, which was enough. "You're really doing this," Maya said, hugging Vivienne. "You're really letting yourself have this." "I'm terrified," Vivienne admitted. "Good. You should be. Love is terrifying. But it's also the only thing that makes existence bearable." Maya pulled back. "Take care of him. And let him take care of you." "I'll try." Later, alone in their bedroom. It was their bedroom now, officially, Ethan having moved in 6 months ago. They lay tangled together. "We're married," Ethan said wonderingly. "You're my wife. And you're my husband. My mortal, human, wonderfully alive husband. For better or worse." "Definitely worse," Vivienne said. "The worse is built into the contract." "The contract?" Ethan laughed. "We started with a contract. Blood for money. And now we have a different contract. Blood and love and vows." She kissed him gently. "I don't know how to do this, Ethan. How to be a wife to someone who's going to die. The same way you do everything else with me. One day at a time. One moment at a time." He pulled her closer. "We're married now. That means you're stuck with me. Until death do us part. Which hopefully won't be for a long time." "Hopefully," Vivienne echoed, and tried to believe it. Years passed. Not quickly, but not slowly either. Time took on a strange quality in their relationship, precious and fleeting for Ethan, achingly fast for Vivienne. At 35, Ethan published his first book, a collection of investigative essays that garnered critical acclaim. Vivienne threw him a launch party, inviting everyone who mattered in his life. She stood in the back, watching him laugh and talk and shine, and felt her heart break with pride and sorrow. He was aging. Subtly, but noticeably. More gray in his hair. Lines around his eyes and mouth. The softening that came with middle age approaching. "You're staring again," Maya whispered beside her. "I can't help it. Every time I see him, he's different." "Is it hard?" "It's excruciating. But it's also beautiful. Watching him become more himself. More confident. More accomplished." Vivienne smiled sadly. "I just wish I could freeze this moment. Keep him exactly as he is right now. But you can't. And that's the point, isn't it? The impermanence is what makes it precious." "I know. But knowing it doesn't make it easier." At 40, Ethan got diagnosed with high blood pressure, manageable with medication and lifestyle changes, but still a reminder that his body was beginning its slow decline. Vivienne tried not to spiral. She went to therapy twice a week. She practiced her mindfulness exercises. She reminded herself that 40 was still young, that they potentially had decades left. But the fear was always there, lurking beneath the surface. "I'm okay," Ethan would reassure her, taking his medication dutifully. "This is normal for my age. Lots of people have high blood pressure." "I know. I know," he'd say, pulling her close. "But we're okay. We're still okay." At 45, Ethan's mother died. Peacefully in her sleep, her mind having left them years before. Ethan held Vivienne's hand at the funeral and cried silently. "I knew it was coming," he said that night. "She's been gone for years in every way that mattered. But still." "It hurts," Vivienne finished. "Knowing something doesn't make it hurt less." "Is this what it'll be like? When I don't?" She put her finger on his lips. "Not tonight. Tonight, we grieve your mother. The rest can wait." But the question hung between them. Was this a preview of their ending? The slow goodbye, the final release, the gaping emptiness left behind? At 50, Ethan looked in the mirror and barely recognized himself. Gray hair, deep wrinkles, the thickness around his middle that no amount of exercise could fully eliminate. "I'm old," he said to Vivienne, who stood behind him looking exactly as she had the day they met. "You're distinguished." "I'm old. And you're still beautiful. Still young." This is what Thomas felt, isn't it? This humiliation. It's not humiliation. It is. Standing next to you, people probably think you're my daughter, or that I'm some old man who bought himself a young trophy wife. He laughed bitterly. "The irony is, that's almost true. Except you bought me first." "Ethan. I'm sorry. I'm being vain and stupid. He turned to face her. "I look at you and I still see the most beautiful woman I've ever met. But when you look at me, what do you see? An old man. A shadow of who I used to be." Vivienne took his face in her hands. "I see my husband. I see the man who stormed my building because he was worried about me. Who made me laugh when I'd forgotten how. Who chose to marry me knowing exactly how it would end. I see you, Ethan. All of you. The gray hair and wrinkles just mean I've had you longer. They're markers of time we've spent together. I treasure every single one." "You're just saying that. I'm 263 years old. I don't just say things." She kissed him softly. "You're beautiful to me. You've always been beautiful to me. That hasn't changed. Even though I have. Especially because you have. Change means growth. Means life being lived. I'd rather have you old and alive than young and gone." Ethan pulled her close, and she felt the slight tremor in his hands that was new, the way his body had softened and rounded with age. He was becoming fragile. Mortal in ways that were increasingly undeniable. But he was still here. Still hers. For now. At 55, Ethan's health began to fail in more serious ways. Diabetes. Arthritis. A minor heart attack that terrified them both. "I'm not ready," Vivienne said in the hospital waiting room while he was in surgery. "I thought I'd have more time. I thought—" "He's going to be okay," Maya said, sitting beside her. "The doctors said it was mild. He'll recover." "For how long? Until the next one? The bigger one?" Vivienne's hands shook. "I've been preparing for this for 25 years. I thought I'd be ready. But I'm not. I'm not ready to lose him. No one's ever ready." The surgery went well. Ethan came home with more medications, more restrictions, more reminders of his mortality. But he was alive. Still laughing, still writing, still loving her with the fierce determination of someone who knew time was running out. "We should travel more," he said one evening. "While I still can. All those places we talked about seeing. Let's go. Let's not wait." So they did. They went to Iceland to see the northern lights. To New Zealand for the landscapes. To Egypt for the pyramids Vivienne had seen built but Ethan had only read about. Every trip was bittersweet. Ethan moved slower now, needed more rest, couldn't do all the things he wanted to do. But his eyes still lit up with wonder. His hand still reached for hers. His love still felt as strong as the day they'd met. At 60, Ethan had to retire. His health couldn't sustain the stress of deadlines and investigations. He took it hard. His work had been his identity for so long. "I feel useless," he admitted to Vivienne. "You're not useless. You're resting. You've earned that." "I've earned being an invalid who can't even walk upstairs without getting winded." "You've earned peace. Time to enjoy life instead of documenting everyone else's." He wasn't convinced. But slowly, he adjusted. He wrote more personal essays, memoirs about his life and their love. He spent time with friends. He let Vivienne take care of him when he needed it and maintained his independence when he could. "I'm trying not to be like Thomas," he said one night. "Trying not to resent you for being healthy while I'm falling apart." "Are you resenting me?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "And then I feel guilty for resenting you, which makes me resent you more for making me feel guilty." He laughed weakly. "I'm a mess. You're human. And you're handling this better than you think." Thomas never talked about his feelings. He just let them fester until they poisoned everything. She took his hand. "Talk to me. Always. Even when it's ugly." "Okay. Here's ugly. I'm terrified. Of dying, yes, but more of becoming a burden. Of you having to care for me like I'm a child. Of losing my dignity piece by piece until there's nothing left of the man you fell in love with." "That won't happen." "It might. Alzheimer's runs in my family. My mother." "Stop," Vivienne said firmly. "We'll face that if it comes. But don't borrow trouble from the future. You're here now. You're still you. That's enough." "For how long?" "For as long as it lasts." At 65, Ethan was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's, the same disease that had taken his mother. "I'm going to forget you," he said, his voice hollow. "I'm going to look at you one day and not know who you are. Just like my mother did to me." Vivienne felt her world tilt. This was the nightmare scenario. Not a quick death, but a slow erosion of the man she loved. Watching him disappear piece by piece while his body kept living. "Then we'll make the most of now," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We'll record everything. I'll tell you stories about us every day. We'll—" "Vivienne." He took her hands. "We need to talk about what happens when I can't make decisions anymore. When I don't remember who I am. Who you are. We don't have to." "Yes, we do. Because there's going to come a day when I'm just a shell. When the disease has taken everything that makes me me. And I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't let me suffer. Don't keep me alive out of guilt or hope that I'll come back. When I'm gone, really gone, let me go. Physically. Don't trap my body here when my mind is already somewhere else." "Ethan." "Promise me, Vivienne. Please. I've watched this disease. I know what it does. I don't want that for myself. And I don't want you to watch it happen for years." She was crying now, openly. "I promise. When you're really gone, I'll let you go. Thank you." He pulled her close. "I love you. Even when I forget, even when I don't know your name anymore, the love will still be there. Somewhere deep. I promise. That's not how Alzheimer's works. Then I'll make it work differently. I'll love you so hard now that it imprints on my soul. So that even when my brain forgets, something else remembers." It was a beautiful lie. They both knew it. But sometimes, beautiful lies were all they had. The decline was slower than Vivienne feared, but faster than Ethan hoped. At 67, he started forgetting recent conversations. At 68, he sometimes didn't recognize familiar places. At 69, he occasionally didn't recognize her. Those moments, when he'd look at her with confusion instead of love, were the worst. Worse than his physical decline. Worse than watching him lose his independence. Because it meant the countdown had truly begun. On good days, he was still mostly himself. Still made terrible jokes. Still held her hand. Still told her he loved her.